The Seattle Seahawks are coming off one of the most impressive seasons that I've seen in a long time. A year in which they traded Russell Wilson and decided to ride it out with Geno Smith and Drew Lock as their quarterbacks. And from the jump, everybody counted them out. But things became quickly clear that Geno Smith had entered this season on a different level, in a different gear, and was playing with a fire right out of the gates. Geno ended up leading them on a great run throughout the season, ending 9-8 and even making the playoffs. Coming into this offseason, Pete Carroll knew he had to do one thing and one thing only: improve this current roster, because he knew that Geno had what it takes to get them to the next level, and he knew that Geno could get over the hump and help get this team over the hump. So the team decided to bring in a couple of big fish free agents instead of, going the other direction and trading some of their pieces and getting younger and start building for the future. They knew that this team had what it took, or had what it takes, to get better and better. So they brought in Devin Bush, Draymond Jones, Julian Love, Jerron Reed, and even bringing back former old-time Seattle legend Bobby Wagner. And as we can tell, their priorities were clear. This defense needed to improve, and that's exactly what happened, not only in free agency, but in the draft as well. The Seahawks are coming off a strong showing in their second preseason game, and the start of the season is right around the corner. And in this video, I'll be breaking down the entirety of their second game versus the Cowboys, but more importantly, why I believe the Seahawks can absolutely shock the world next season and potentially even make some noise in the playoffs. However, before we jump into the video, I need you guys to do me a huge favor and smash the like button if you haven't already done so. It helps out the channel so much. So let's even get the video up to 500 likes. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will be covering the Seahawks all off season long, as well as the rest of the NFL, and I also will be live streaming a ton of Seahawks games this season. So if you guys want to come and watch some games with me throughout the season, join the family, turn on post notifications so you're notified every time we post a video and every time we go live for a game as well. But lastly, if you guys play fantasy football and hate being stressed about roster management, starting and sitting players, if you don't want to deal with all of that, you guys need to check out Underdog Fantasy. Link is in the description. Use my promo code and they'll double your first deposit. You guys can do a game of higher and lower. You can do drafts every single day, season long, weekly long, NFL, MLB, NBA, a bunch of different sports. Go check it out, and there will be a segment at the end of the video. Go check it out, and if you guys want to join some leagues with me, make sure you guys click the link, comment down below saying you signed up, and they also match your first deposit. So if you put in $100, they'll give you a free $100 to you, so it's kind of fire. But without any further ado, let's jump into today's video. Now, something that's flying extremely under the radar right now is the amount of depth that the Seahawks really do have. And the media, as well as other teams in the NFL, are completely sleeping on the fact that the Seahawks have gone so much better since last season, and we are only starting to slowly see the shades of greatness or shades of improvement that are starting to happen here in Seattle, and we especially saw that versus the Cowboys in this second preseason game. Now, Geno Smith looked sharp in his first two drives. Like I said, only played 2 drives because they want to keep him rested. They know this is their future. This is their guy that they want to roll with throughout the entirety of the season. So they gave him 2 drives. They want to see what he could do, and he actually looked really good. And then right after he came out the game, Drew Lock stepped in, a guy who, was highly drafted a couple of years back, didn't really pan out over there in Denver, came over here to Seattle in the Russell Wilson trade, and, didn't really look amazing throughout his first season in Seattle. That's why he was the backup quarterback, and primarily Geno Smith just looked a lot better. But now Drew Lock is starting to come into his own, and he's starting to look good as well. Drew Lock led Seattle to a pair of second quarter touchdowns, and the Seahawks beat the Dallas Cowboys 22-14 on Saturday night. Seattle is 2-0 this preseason, and has just looked good. Now, Seattle did give a number of its starters on both sides of the ball a little bit of playing time. They want to continue to ramp these guys up and make sure they're ready for the start of the season. So they did get a little bit of playing time, but the thing that really amazed me was the quarterback play. It was so much better than I thought. Geno Smith and Drew Lock were, no pun intended, they were locked in from the very start. Geno Smith had 2 drives behind his starting offensive line, and the second possession ended in a 57-yard field goal from Jason Myers. Smith was 5 of 6 for 46 yards in his limited action, and then Lock took over in the second quarter and continued to show, why he will be the Seattle Seahawks backup, and why they're in, pretty decent hands, pretty good hands with him as their backup quarterback. Locke was also 5 of 6 from the field, 119 yards, including a 48-yard strike to first-rounder Jackson Smith-Njigba. That set up DJ Dallas for a 1-yard touchdown as well. But overall, Locke and Smith combined combined to miss 2 out of 12 passes. Only 2 passes were incomplete when those two quarterbacks were in the game, so they looked really, really good. And not only did the quarterback stand out, but the majority of the skill players did as well, including rookies Zach Charbonnet and Jackson Smith-Njigba looked really good as well. Jason had 3 catches for 58 yards. However, we did get some bad news that he has a wrist injury, and he might be out for the first few weeks, or for the next couple of weeks, but maybe he might miss a week or 2 in the regular season. I'm not too sure. Let me know in the comment section down below if there's been any updates. But then Zach Charbonnet also had a nice performance, a couple of carries, 3 carries, 31 yards, averaging roughly 10 yards per attempt. So that was really good. And right from there, right when they saw those carries, they were like, okay, you know what? Let's put him on the bench and let's just rest him for a little bit. Now, we did have a long carry of 29 yards. So obviously, majority of those yards came in just 1 carry, but he just looked very athletic, elusive, and someone who they were going to utilize when it comes to the start of the season. Now, with that being said, there were a couple of other guys that really stood out to me offensively, and one of them was wide receiver Jake Bobo, who caught 2 of his 3 targets for 43 yards and has been lighting up camp so far, slowly climbing up this depth chart. And I will not be surprised at all to see him actually, make this roster when it comes down to the 53-man cuts. Right now, I think he's listed as maybe the 7th wide receiver maybe, but I do think that he will be someone who, they really consider to make this team. I mean, you have Derek Young, Cody Thompson, Cade Johnson as your backup wide receivers right now, but I think Jake Bobo has done what it takes to, solidify himself as being a reliable target in this offense. Now, lastly, offensively, SaRodorick Thompson Jr. had a nice combination of run plays where he totaled 11 carries for 50 yards in 1 touchdown throughout the game. So he's another guy that looked good to me. Now, again, he had a long of 29, so, a majority of his yards came from 1 carry, but he also was pretty reliable overall in the game. So I think he looked pretty good. Now, defensively is where this team needed to improve the most going into the season. And, from what I've seen throughout the preseason, they have looked really good. There's been a number of different guys that I've seen and been like, wow, this guy looks pretty good. One guy in particular, Tyreek Smith, but what I was going to say was Devin Bush, but I meant to say Tyreek Smith. He had 8 tackles, 4 solo, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss, and also he had 1 QB hit as well. And then you go down the list, and one guy that is really, really slept on that I think could have a huge season, not only this year but for years to come, Derek Hall, the rookie end from Auburn. I'm a big Auburn fan, so I've seen him a bunch there at Auburn, and he was amazing, and I think he's going to come in here and be a fan favorite, dude. He is really good. He had a sack last game. He had, just a couple of nice plays, 2 QB hits overall. I think Derek Hall is going to be someone they look to utilize a lot off the edge this year. Right now, he is playing behind a couple of guys like Uchenna Nwosu, Boye Mafe. So I do think Derek Hall is going to start off slow, but once they figure out where to play him and when to play him, I think this dude is going to get a ton of playing time and be, very, very productive overall with his work. You also have a couple of other guys that look good in terms of Miles Adams had a sack. You had a couple of tackles for loss for Trey Brown and John Radigan. You also had Roderick Perry with the tackle for loss, and Jerron Reed, the newly acquired dude, gets a sack for them. Now, he's been pretty good. A couple of tackles for a loss. I mean, there's just been a lot of guys who have been stepping up, looking good. Kobe Bryant had 4 tackles. You had Jonathan Sutherland with 7 tackles. Patrick O'Connell with 7 tackles. So a bunch of guys looking really good here for Seattle. And, although they have a lot of work to do, I feel like this defense really looks good. I mean, when you look at the starting lineup, Draymond Jones, Jerron Reed, Cameron Young, you got Boye Mafe, Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, Devin Bush, Uchenna Nwosu, Derek Hall, Devon Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams, Michael Jackson, Artie Burns, Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Trey Brown. I mean, everywhere you look, I know I just went on a big ramble. of players, but that's just how good they are. Darrell Taylor, the former second-round pick. I mean, they have so many guys here on this defense that can make a difference right away, and that's why I think that this team is so underrated, and people are really, sleeping on their talent, sleeping on their ability, and what they looked like last season is only the beginning of what they can truly be. As long as Geno Smith gets a little bit better or even has the same season as last year, this team is going to be a playoff team, and they're going to surprise a ton of people. I mean, their wide receivers look good. Their offensive line is slowly improving. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. They also have Kenny McIntosh, who has been pretty good as well. So this team is by far much improved from last season, and they're only going to get better from here. Now, the Seahawks have done a great job improving this roster, like I said, from top to bottom. They have some insane depth at a bunch of different positions. And if Geno Smith can, like I said, take that step forward from last season, this team will surprise a ton of people. Their offense looks lethal. Their defense has improved a ton on paper. And if they even find a lick of momentum throughout the season, the NFL needs to watch out, because Seattle is coming. Guys, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, join the family, check out Underdog Fantasy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. And if you love playing fantasy sports like football, basketball, baseball, and so many other sports, but also love being able to win money, you're going to want to stick around for this whole segment. Introducing Underdog Fantasy, the ultimate platform for fantasy sports lovers. Do you want to experience the thrill of drafting your team and competing for huge prizes? Well, look no further. With Underdog Fantasy, you get access to a wide range of fantasy sports, including football, basketball, baseball, and so much more. But here's what makes Underdog Fantasy stand out from all of those other apps. They've got quick and user-friendly drafting process, a unique and exciting game formats, fair and competitive contests for all skill levels, and attractive bonuses and promotions. Not only can you draft teams and compete with others, but you can also play a game of higher and lower, which is personally my favorite thing to do on there, but you can potentially win 20 times the money you put down. And if you use code MattyDubs when you sign up, Underdog will match your first deposit up to $100. And what that means is basically when you deposit, let's say $100, they'll give you a free $100 to use and play with. Click the link in the description to get started, or head to the website right now to start dominating the fantasy world. And don't miss out on all the fun. Be a part of the Underdog community starting now. And don't forget, if you use code MattyDubs, they'll match your first deposit up to $100. Let's get started. Get into drafts with me starting today.